Hi guys, Trevor Swenson with Through the Darkness, my personal journey with PTSD, trauma and stressor-related disorder. It's good to be with you. I'm glad you're with me today. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that is very prevalent in unresolved trauma, very prevalent in PTSD, very prevalent in trauma and stressor-related disorder, and that is the topic of fear. In my goal and journey to do the most comprehensive journey of PTSD from somebody who has PTSD, I want to cover as many topics that are relevant as I possibly can. And fear is one of those topics that rears its ugly head a lot when dealing with trauma. I have been very straightforward with my personal faith, and this is another one of those examples where, as I struggle with PTSD and try to find meaning and purpose through the journey, and try to find meaning and purpose to what has happened to me and what has happened to my family and what has happened to my friends because of PTSD, it all brings me full circle back to what does God say about the topics that I am struggling horribly with, whether it be anxiety or depression or interaction with people or solitude, prayer, and today happens to be fear. And there are a lot of things in the walk with trauma and PTSD that have brought on my own fear. And I wanted to list those, some of them. It's not an all-inclusive list, but some of them that I've had to cross that bridge, and maybe, in fact, most likely, something is going to resonate with you. So, for instance, the fear of the length of time that it's going to take me to start feeling well again, the fear of lasting impacts on relationships that have been affected by PTSD, the fear of not being able to make obligations that normal life presents to us on a daily basis, the fear of social situations, the fear of being alone or feeling completely alone, the fear of people, the fear of the people that may have caused your trauma, the fear of rejection, the fear of the stigma, the fear of people finding out and treating you differently, knowing that you have PTSD or a trauma and stressor-related disorder or any type of a disorder that is very difficult to talk about. The fear of losing control. As I talked about in a prior episode, control and lack thereof is very much a trigger and a fear-driving topic to discuss, because for PTSD and trauma survivors, having lost control during that time frame, having lost control during that instantaneous moment, having lost control in the relationship, having lost control is now a very real fear for us. A fear of income in the future, a fear of a professional job or handling yourself in a professional situation, a fear of what the medications are going to do and the effects, the side effects that they might have, the fear of everything happening again, the fear of locations, the fear of new fears that have reared its head. as you heard my wife talk, there are fears that I have now that I've never had in my life because of PTSD and because of how my brain has been altered, as has yours if you have had a very traumatic experience or a very traumatic season and been diagnosed with PTSD. There's a lot of fear to deal with, and it can be a very hopeless, a very depressing, a very scary thing to dwell on. And so now what? Well, I want to give you a few examples of fear. I'm going to give you a simple one that happened just the other day to me, and it's a simple example, but I want you to understand and maybe look past your fear. One of the things that I enjoy doing is I enjoy swimming at night. I know that sounds crazy, but the other night I wanted to do a night swim, and what I do is I take my daughter and my wife out on a boat ride, and before we get back to where we need to be, I have them stop quite a ways out, actually a long ways out, and I swim the rest of the way. Now, you would think that with the loving wife that I have, that when I do this, that there would be her following very slowly beside me or right behind me as I'm doing this night swim. And they make me anxious, they do, but I also know that overcoming fear is exuding courage, which courage is moving forward in the presence of fear. And this is just one thing that I did. And as I started swimming and as I got well into my swim, assuming that she would be right beside me or right behind me, I looked back, and way off in the distance, not only had the boat not started, but she didn't even start the boat. And I was on my own in the water, in the dark, and she wasn't worried. She wasn't full of fear. She didn't know what I was feeling. But the fact of the matter is that I did it, and I did it, and there was no safety boat there. Now, had she said ahead of time, I'm going to sit out here and I'm going to talk to my daughter and have a nice relaxing time while you swim all the way back to where we need to go, I would have said, no, we're not going to do that, out of fear. But I ended up going, assuming that that would be the case. And the lesson is that we are capable of overcoming our fears way more adeptly than we give ourselves credit for. I thought the safety boat was there. It wasn't. I ended up doing it anyway, and it built my confidence, and it ended up being a fantastic accomplishment for the night. My next example, in the Bible, take a stab at how many times it says fear not in the Bible. Fear not, do not be discouraged, do not be afraid. Over 600 times. And what that tells me is that God knew that we would be faced with fear, and we would be faced with fear regularly. And he commands us. He doesn't ask us. He doesn't suggest it. He tells us to fear not. Over 600 times. And I want to repeat again that courage, true courage, is moving forward in whatever your fear is, even if it's one little step at a time. I go back to the Navy SEAL community as I dove headlong into the mental side of SEALs, Navy SEALs, who are the most feared warrior group on the face of the planet, and you would assume would have no fear, that it was just conditioned out of them. Actually, They are conditioned to deal with their fear. They feel fear. They feel afraid. They go through all of the same symptoms that you and I do in our fear, yet they are trained to overcome fear. They're just as sick to their stomach before they jump out of that airplane as you or I would be, but they are trained to overcome their fear. And it just blew my mind. It made me feel okay about the fears that I have, and it made me more concerned about what am I going to do in the face of fear. Am I going to take a step forward, or am I going to freeze and curl up in the fetal position? And I have started aggressively to start to overcome those fears that have reared their ugly head in the face of trauma and PTSD, because it is very, very prevalent. Fear is a very real thing when dealing with PTSD in my story. And so little by little, and I'll tell you what, I'll be quite honest with you. The other day I was with my daughter and I wanted to take a small step in something that I knew would drive my fear and anxiety up. I just knew it would, but I wanted to do it, and I looked at my daughter and I said, just so you know, Dad's feeling afraid and is feeling fear right now. And she said, well, why are we doing this then? And I said, because to get better, part of getting better is facing those fears in a safe, gradual manner for me. So it was an important lesson to my daughter as well. It also states in the Bible that we are not given a spirit of fear and timidity. We are given a spirit of power and of love and a sound mind. And for me, because I do believe that it is the true spoken word of God, all of those feelings of fear and anxiety, all of those things that are driving the toxic reactions to PTSD are not of God. God says, I am filling you with power, I am filling you with love, and I am filling you with a sound mind, which is one of the reasons that I ask you just to cry out to God in your pain and say, please be a part of this journey with me. You already know my story. I just want you and long for you to be close, and He will be close, and He will get you through. He is a God that never fails. He is a God that is full of love, compassion, gentleness, and kindness, which again are all things that great doctors, great therapists will tell you if suffering from PTSD is to be gentle, compassionate, and kind with yourself, and work through those things and know that things are going to get better for you in the future as you aggressively make the decision that I am going to not exist in PTSD and in my unresolved trauma and in my trauma. I am going to move forward in courage. In the face of fear, I'm going to take steps, even if they're baby steps, even if they're falling forward. I'm going to choose to take courage, to take heart, and to not fear. Fear is a very, very real thing, and I can't wait to have you challenged by facing your fears in a safe manner, whether that be with a therapist, whether that be in something that you have set as a personal goal, whatever it might be. Do it safe, do it professionally, and the feeling of overcoming those fears is part of my healing process, and I hope it can be for you as well. And I just want to ask you this last question rhetorically, as I have to ask myself all the time. What is your fear keeping you from? What purpose is your fear keeping you from? And I'll use this video series as an example. I was afraid and full of fear before I started this. And here we are, 50 some episodes later, with me being transparent and vulnerable to a community of people that hopefully can benefit from walking with me through my journey with PTSD for years, if not for generations to come, knowing that there is hope, knowing that there is a God that loves them, knowing that your day of healing is on the way, just like mine is. Who would have ever thought? And it was all started by taking a small step, one video, out of immense fear, and taking courage, moving forward in the fear. So I challenge you with that today. Again, seek professional help with your fear and with your anxiety. Do what they ask you to do. Set goals for yourself, and know first and foremost that you are not given a spirit of fear and timidity. You are given a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind. Please click and subscribe. I can't wait to talk with you next time. This is Trevor Swenson with Through the Darkness. Forward this on to somebody that might be able to benefit from it. It would be incredibly fulfilling to me. I can't wait to see you next time.